The wind in Boise always had a bite in early spring dry and cutting even under sunlight. My suitcase wheels jittered across the cracked asphalt of the airport's long-term parking, each row sign squeaking faintly above me in the breeze. I checked my phone again. No answer from Avon. Her last message was 3 days ago. Pick up at Gate C if you land early. Love you, Mom. Row D came into view. I nearly passed the silver Civic before I noticed it. Something shifting behind the fogged glass. The passenger seat leaned too far back. I slowed down. There was a crumpled snack wrapper on the dashboard. Something soft moved in the back. I stepped closer. There she was, Avon, her cheek pressed against the window, eyes sunken, breath fogging the glass in faint pulses. In the back seat, Liam's legs were tangled in a jacket 2 sizes too big. Ava's small fingers clutched a stuffed koala. A half-eaten sleeve of crackers lay between them, crumbled into their blanket. I knocked once. Avon jolted upright, blinking like she'd been yanked from underwater. She rubbed her eyes, then stared. Her lips parted, but no sound came. I leaned down. Avon, her voice cracked. Mom, what are you doing here? I didn't answer right away. I was watching Ava stir in the back seat, hair matted against the window. What am I doing here? What are you doing here? You told me you were in Meridian Heights. She pressed her forehead to the steering wheel. Her shoulders started to shake. We were, until Micah locked us out. He said the house isn't mine. He changed the locks. The air inside the car smelled like old food and damp clothes. I tried the back door. It opened with a creak. I reached in, pulled the blanket up to Ava's chin, tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Avon's voice broke behind me. I didn't want you to see this. I turned to face her fully. Why didn't you call? I didn't know how to explain. He made it sound legal, like I signed it all away. She covered her face with her hands. I thought it was just a tax thing. I didn't speak, just looked again at the Civic, the crumbs, the cracked cup holder, Liam's sneaker wedged under the seat. This was no accident. This was abandonment. I pulled out my keys and stepped back. You're coming home with me. Avon hesitated. I don't want the kids to see me cry again. I opened the trunk. Then don't. Let them see you safe. Behind me, the Civic's door clicked shut. I heard her gathering bags, soft whispers to the kids. The wind picked up again, whistling through the rows. Somewhere across the lot, a plane lifted off into the sky. We walked back toward short-term parking. Her silence said more than anything else could. The front door of my house stuck a little in the spring. Always had. I pushed it open with my shoulder, the hinges groaning against the frame, and stepped aside to let Avon and the kids in. Liam ran in first backpack, bouncing, heading straight for the worn recliner by the window, like it remembered him. Ava held tighter to her mother's hand and didn't let go until I bent down and offered her a small, stuffed cat from the donation box I kept near the pantry. She took it silently. Avon stood frozen in the entryway. Her eyes scanned the living room, but never settled. I watched her shoulders rise and fall once before she spoke. I don't want to take up space. You already exist in this house, I said, hanging my keys on the hook. You're not taking anything. She hovered near the doorway for another moment, then stepped forward with that same soft gait she had as a child when she walked across snow without making a sound. I set out bowls while the kids curled under a fleece blanket on the couch, the TV playing cartoons at a low volume. The cereal cracked as I poured it, the milk dull against the ceramic. Avon sat at the kitchen table and rested her palms flat against the wood. I placed a bowl in front of her. It's not much. It's warm. She ate slowly, spoon clinking. Once every few seconds, her stare fixed somewhere past the wall behind me. I didn't press her. Not yet. When her spoon hit the bottom of the bowl, she spoke. He said it was just for taxes. that we'd save on liabilities if the house went into his LLC. He used phrases I didn't understand and laughed when I asked questions. I sat down across from her fingers, laced. And then he told me to stop micromanaging. Said my moods were exhausting, that I made the kids anxious. Her voice stayed calm, but her nails dug into her palms. I asked about the savings, the account for the twins, and he looked at me like I was accusing him of murder. Said I had no right to interrogate him in his house. My chest tightened. And the $150,000 I gave you for their education, she looked down. He said he'd invested it. Then he said I imagined the whole thing, that maybe I needed to talk to someone about my memory. He said it with a smile, like he was trying to help. The radiator kicked on. The pipes groaned. I reached across the table not to touch her, but to slide a napkin into her hand. She didn't cry. Instead, she folded the napkin into a square and tucked it into her coat pocket. Something about the gesture, the precision, the restraint felt like watching someone sew up their own wound. Down the hall, Liam laughed at something on TV. Ava's voice followed, high and sweet. Avon looked toward the sound and blinked hard. He hadn't just taken her house. He'd taken her sense of truth, and I had a feeling he wasn't done. I turned off Vista Avenue and drove slow through the cul-de-sac tires, crunching over the gravel edge where the curb cracked. The street hadn't changed. Not since I helped Avon pick this neighborhood 5 years ago. Safe, quiet, close enough to her job at the clinic, far enough from Micah's parents. Their house looked untouched. Same wreath on the door, same porch rug I bought last fall, the one with the pine cones stitched into the corners. Through the open front windows I heard music, top 40, pop too loud for a Sunday. Balloons were taped to the mailbox. A white folding table with aluminum trays shimmered in the sunlight near the garage. A little girl with face paint ran across the lawn, chasing a balloon. A cluster of women stood near the hedges with wine glasses in hand. I parked 2 houses down and stepped out. No one turned to look. I walked past the lawn games and up the front steps, adjusted my blouse and rang the doorbell. It was Micah who opened the door. He held a sweating can of beer in one hand and wore a pink party hat pushed too far back on his head. His shirt was pressed, his hair neatly trimmed. His mouth curled. "Didn't expect you, Corliss." I let my eyes travel past him. The house smelled like warm rolls and expensive candles. A woman laughed from the dining room. "I want to talk about the house, and the savings, and why Avon's name isn't on a single document." He leaned against the doorframe like we were catching up at a barbecue. "It's nothing personal. I'm just protecting my assets. You stole them. Your daughter's not exactly stable." He lifted the can for a sip. "You've seen her. Emotional swings, paranoia, the works. I had to make some decisions." I didn't move. Behind his shoulder, just past the bar cart, hung a canvas I recognized instantly. Cream tones, thick brush strokes, uneven frame. I had painted it the year Dawn passed. I gave it to Avon. It had hung in her dining room for years. Now it was part of the decor. A backdrop for champagne. Micah followed my eyes and smiled. "Nice piece." She left it when she stormed out. I steadied my voice. "I want copies of every document she signed. All of them. And I want them this week." He chuckled. "You can call my lawyer." "I will." I stepped down, heels sharp against the porch boards. His niece ran past me again, a balloon string in one hand, frosting on her chin. She didn't know anything about eviction notices or altered deeds. Inside, Micah's music swelled louder. Back in the car, I locked the doors and sat for a moment, my hands on the steering wheel. The painting, the party, the lie wrapped in clean legal paper. Micah knew how to make cruelty look like paperwork. Rachel's office still smelled like lemon oil and printer toner. Same glass paperweight on the corner of her desk, a swirling purple orb we used to call the galaxy. I hadn't seen her in over a year, not since she helped me revise my own will after Dawn passed. But when I called and asked if she could spare half an hour, she didn't hesitate. She slid her reading glasses on and pulled up the county records on her screen. "Give me the address." I did. She typed quickly, eyes narrowing as the documents loaded. "The house is owned by a holding LLC wheat glass capital." Her voice was flat professional. "Formed about 20 months ago. Registered under one name only, Micah Avery." I leaned forward. "Is there a co-owner listed?" "No." She scrolled. "No spousal consent either. And here, look at this transfer date. Title changed hands the day after Avon was admitted to urgent care at St. Luke's." "She had a seizure," I murmured. "They gave her Ativan and ran tests. I was there the whole night." Rachel tapped the screen. "He used that as grounds for declaring her medically unstable. Filed a temporary power of attorney, says it was signed the morning after she got home. But there's no record of her acknowledgement. No notary seal. She never signed one. Not ever. She wouldn't have been legally able to if she was still under medication." Rachel's eyes were sharp now. "It wouldn't hold in court. But if no one challenges it," it clicked into place. Micah hadn't just lied. He'd waited for her to collapse, then built a paper wall around her while she was still trying to stand. Back home, I pulled the banker's box from the top shelf of the coat closet. It held 20 years of receipts, donation slips, tuition agreements. I thumbed through until I found the envelope marked Avon Education Fund. Inside was a notarized tuition agreement from 2 years ago. My signature, Micah's. No mention of Avon. I held the paper up to the light. His signature looked familiar, too familiar. If he'd forged this one, what else had he faked? I set the paper down and reached for my phone. Tomorrow, I'd call the notary listed at the bottom of the form. And after that, the bank. The motel room smelled like soap and coffee filters. Avon was kneeling beside one of the suitcases, trying to make space for the twins' pajamas, when she picked up a plush lion and froze. "This isn't Liam's." Her fingers turned the toy over. He had a bear, with a blue satin bow. He used to chew the ear. I crossed the room and took it gently from her. The tag was from a gas station chain, not the boutique in Meridian where I bought his original. She sat back on her heels, eyes glazed. "None of this is ours." The clothes were generic. The toys all wrong. Even Ava's pink water bottle was missing, replaced with a faded sippy cup. That night, while Avon stayed with the twins at my place, I drove toward Micah's side of town. The strip malls looked the same as ever. Vape shops, payday loans, pawn windows glowing under tired neon. I stopped at the first store. The clerk shook his head. No record under Avery. The second shop told me the same. At the third, a young man behind the plexiglass counter squinted at me when I asked, "Hold on." He turned toward a drawer under the register. He pulled out a receipt folded into quarters. This was about 3 weeks ago. Gold pendant initials EJ, Micah Avery. Said it was his aunt's necklace needed to make rent. Looked kind of rushed. He passed it through the slot. I unfolded the paper and stared. The signature at the bottom read, Avon J. Avery. Shaky, uneven. Too flat at the edges like someone copying strokes instead of writing naturally. My stomach dropped. "She didn't sign this." The clerk shrugged. "You want it back, you can redeem it tomorrow. We can't hold items past 30 days without payment." "How much? $175 cash only?" "Bring the receipt." I folded it tightly and tucked it into my coat. My hands didn't stop trembling until I reached the car. At home, I tucked the twins in. Liam curled beside Ava like a comma. The necklace was Eleanor Jane's, my mother's. Avon wore it the day Dawn was buried. Micah called it rent money, but he didn't pay rent. He took a legacy and sold it like scrap. In the morning, I would buy it back. With my own money. Again. Rachel's office smelled faintly of lemon wipes and dry toner. She stood by the window, her blazer slung over the back of her chair, arms crossed as I laid the pawn receipt and forged tuition documents in front of her. "I believe you," she said, after a long pause. "But courts need more than receipts. They need intent. Intent. Not just lies, but proof he meant to steal." She picked up her phone. "I know someone. He's discreet. You'll need to trust him." That's how I met Tom Cho, broad-shouldered, soft-spoken, and unnervingly calm. He never asked if I was sure. He just studied the layout of Micah's house based on old photos. I had nodded and opened a weathered case of gear. We went with the simplest plan: a gift basket, wine, chocolate, snacks, and a tucked-in smart recorder sealed in a hollowed-out candle jar. From his cousin in Spokane, Tom explained as he boxed it. "Make sure the card's casual, not a threat." Avon wrote the note with shaky hands. We shipped it the same day. 48 hours later, Tom sent us the file. We listened on Rachel's laptop, the volume turned low. Paper rustled, glasses clinked, doors opened and shut. Then came voices. "No, seriously, she just signed everything after that panic attack. Didn't even read. I could have slipped in a timeshare clause." A pause. Another voicemail, nasal. "Wait, didn't her mom give y'all money for the twins?" Micah, again laughing now. "Gift. No strings. Woman thinks she's Carnegie. I should thank her for raising someone that gullible." Rachel clicked pause. The screen froze on the waveform. My hands had clenched without me realizing. "That's enough, right?" She nodded. "That's more than enough." The next morning, we walked into the Ada County Courthouse. Rachel carried the file box. I carried copies of everything I'd funded over the last 6 years. Check stubs, tuition plans, even the invoice for the mattress said I bought when Ava was born. Fraud, forgery, asset conversion, civil recovery. Still, Rachel warned me as we sat across from the clerk. "He'll say she's unstable. Try to spin it as protection." I didn't flinch. Then let him stand in front of a judge and say it out loud. Ava wanted mermaids. Not Disney ones, she clarified, real ones with sharp fins and bubble crowns. So Avon and I found ocean blue streamers and glittered seashells from the dollar store, and we taped them across the small community room at the Boise Library. The cupcake tray sagged under too much frosting, and I had wrapped her gift a sketchbook with colored gel pens in fabric printed with dolphins. We didn't expect him to come. The court order allowed for supervised visits only. Avon extended the invitation for Ava's sake, not his. And yet when he walked in 23 minutes late, wearing loafers and cologne that didn't suit him, the room chilled. He didn't look at the decorations. He didn't glance at his daughter. Ava, bright as ever, darted toward me, holding her cupcake, high blue frosting, already streaked on her cheek. "Grandma, look, mine has a shell." Micah stood near the snack table, arms crossed. His voice came low, but deliberate enough for the whole room to hear. "That one's probably crazy, too. Guess she got her mom's defective genes?" Avon's breath caught. The court liaison, a tired-looking woman with a clipboard and sharp ears, lifted her head. I rose. He didn't move, just raised one brow like this was another performance to be endured. I walked over until we were face to face, close enough to smell the beer he hadn't even bothered to hide. My voice was even. "You called her mother unstable. You forged her signature. You sold her necklace. You told the court she imagined everything, and now you insult a 6-year-old on her birthday." His smirk flickered. I reached into my jacket pocket. My fingers brushed the audio recorder Tom had given me. Small, black, reliable. Let's see what the judge thinks. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't have to. The court liaison made a mark on her pad. Micah's gaze shifted to her, then back to me. For once he had nothing to say. I turned my back on him, walked toward Ava, and handed her a napkin to wipe the frosting from her nose. The sun through the library window caught the edge of her cupcake, casting a shimmer over her curls. She laughed, clear, high, untouched. I decided then and there he'd never interrupt that sound again. The courtroom smelled like old carpet and nerves. I sat next to Avon, her hands clasped so tightly the knuckles had gone white. Rachel Everin leaned forward at the plaintiff's table, her folder thick with documents and audio transcripts. Across the aisle, Micah lounged in his tailored jacket, flicking invisible lint off his cuff. His attorney, a lean man with a too white smile, adjusted his tie and stood. "She's emotionally erratic," he said, gesturing to Avon without looking at her. "This entire suit rests on claims made by a woman with a history of instability." Rachel stood before the judge could respond. "Your Honor, may I direct the court to Exhibit 14? These are Avon Beckley's full medical records from the last 7 years, including the treatment summary from her urgent care visit." She handed the file to the clerk. The judge, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s, flipped through the pages. "Epilepsy?" Rachel continued. "No psychiatric diagnosis. No history of instability. The medication listed is levetiracetam, a standard anti-epileptic." Furthermore, she raised a second document. There was no legally executed power of attorney at any point. The signature Micah Beckley submitted was dated 3 days after Avon was discharged. The notary listed has since testified that she never witnessed Avon signing anything. The judge didn't blink. "You're saying it was forged?" Rachel nodded once. "Yes, Your Honor. And we have more." She gestured toward the screen. Tom Cho's audio played through the court speakers. Micah's voice filled the room, loud, smug, unmistakable. She didn't even ask questions after the panic attack. Signed everything. I should thank her mom for raising someone that gullible. The room fell still. "And the education money?" another voice asked. Micah laughed. "Gift. No strings." Avon's jaw trembled, but she didn't look away. Not this time. Judge Calder leaned forward. "I'm issuing an order. Immediate joint legal custody of both children. The defendant will return $112,000 within 90 days or forfeit all assets under his LLC. The property is frozen, pending a fraud audit." Micah leapt up. "That's not fair. You can't." She tapped the gavel once. "You're done, Mr. Beckley." I reached for Avon's hand, but she was already standing on her own, not shaking, not hiding. The gavel echoed once more before the judge stood and turned away. And just like that, the lies began to fall. The judgment came down with finality. Joint legal custody. A restitution deadline. The LLC suspended under fraud audit. And while Micah wouldn't see the inside of a jail cell, something in his face said he knew he'd lost something heavier than concrete walls. Rachel called the next morning while I was loading laundry into the machine. Her voice came through crisp. "We have grounds. You could reclaim the house, Corliss. It was your money that secured it, and Micah can't defend the transfer anymore." I looked out the window at Avon in the yard, pulling a wagon with both kids stacked inside like giggling cargo. Her shoulders were loose for the first time in weeks. "Let me talk to her," I murmured. We sat down over tea. I repeated Rachel's offer and waited. Avon barely blinked. "I don't want it back." "You don't have to live there," I said. "We could sell it, lock it down." She twisted the mug between her palms. "He defiled everything in that place. Every room's wired with a memory I didn't agree to. It's poisoned. So we didn't take it back. Instead, I helped her lease a modest 2-bedroom near Franklin Park. Nothing grand, just clean windows, warm paint, and enough space for bunk beds and a crooked bookshelf. The kind of place with light switches that click instead of hum. We used part of the recovered funds. Rachel moved quickly to open a secured trust for the twins. 50,000 each, untouchable until college. We left the rest untouched for now. Avon wanted to breathe first. A week after the move, she came by after bedtime with a small box wrapped in brown tissue. Her eyes shimmered in the porch light. "I almost sold it when I was desperate," she said, "but he beat me to it." Inside was the gold necklace, the pendant with the engraved initials EJ, for her grandmother, Eleanor June. She pressed it into my hand. "It's yours again. He used it to humiliate us. But it's not his story anymore. We're taking it back." The chain glinted like it remembered me. I clasped it around my neck and didn't speak. Not yet. The night air was soft, and inside the kettle had begun to whistle. 2 months had passed since the ruling, and the air finally felt like it belonged to us again. The morning light draped over the sidewalk as Liam and Ava darted ahead of me, their sneakers slapping the concrete in uneven rhythm. They had a routine now. Drop off donated towels at the vet shelter, feed the fish in the waiting room tank, say good morning to the grumpy tabby who ruled the front desk like a tired queen. I paused at the side wall of the building. The mural we'd helped repaint shimmered in soft pastels, dog paws, vines, bluebirds in flight. Just under the frame of a cloud was the line I'd taught them to write in careful block letters. "Home is the place where truth is safe." Ava's voice floated back. "Gran." The orange one sneezed on Liam again. I laughed. "That means he likes you." Behind me, a familiar car door thumped shut. Avon crossed the lot with a bakery box balanced on her arm. Her hair was clipped back, the neckline of her shirt stained with a dab of pink frosting. She'd been up early again, volunteer shift at the shelter before heading to the arts nonprofit. Part-time hours, flexible enough to attend Liam's woodworking club and help Ava prep for her next speech meet. She passed me a cupcake before I could ask. The twins helped decorate. That's why they look haunted. Frosting leaned sideways. I bit into mine anyway. Inside, the staff greeted us by name. No one stared at Avon sideways anymore. No one whispered when she filled out a form. The therapist bills still came, and I still covered most of them. But Avon had started splitting the co-pays with stubborn pride. Her checks were small, but always on time. We weren't rich. We weren't polished. But we were standing. As we left, Liam looped his arm through mine, smearing icing across my sleeve. "Gran," he whispered, "can we stop by the library?" After I nodded. The wind lifted the corner of my scarf. It smelled like cottonwood and distant rain, and for once there wasn't a trace of anything I had to run from.